allowing remote work and hiring remotely can let you get better talent. More critically important in recruiting and HR now is that the person who's a perfect fit for that job, the person who has exactly the right experience and knows just what to do, can now have even more leverage and impact with AI tools than before. Is the biggest mistake that people make is not getting their company ready for having remote talent. To see the amount of change in like my day-to-day work there that has happened due to AI in the past 2 years. What I do on a daily basis now is completely unrecognizable from where it was, say, 2 years ago. But in a remote environment, if you're not proactive, you're not going to be productive at all. No. Right? Like I literally almost no longer type the code. I'm managing AI agents and managing staff that are managing AI agents.
Welcome to the 80/20 Recruit podcast, the show that's all about mastering remote talent acquisition and retention. Whether you're hiring your first remote worker or scaling your team, we've got you covered. I'm Frank, your host. Let's get started. Welcome to the 80/20 Recruit podcast, hiring, building, retaining top talent. This show is dedicated to helping business leaders, recruiters, and HR professionals master the art of hiring and managing real estate and marketing teams. I'm your host, Francisco Israel, and you can find me anywhere on LinkedIn. Our podcast is proudly sponsored by 8020recruit.com, where we help marketing agencies and tech companies like real estate investors and agencies build high performing Latin American teams 100% guaranteed without any markup fees or recruiting fees. Today's guest is Ethan Reeves. He's CTO at Orbit Flows, where they help you capture your unique content into repeatable AI accelerated template. Ethan Reeves, welcome to 80/20 Recruit podcast. Tell us a little bit about your company and how you're helping your customers.
Yeah, happy to be here. So really what Orbit Flows is all about is about taking those esoteric content production processes, right? Those detailed pieces of writing how you want things to sound and distilling that all into the Orbit Flows system, which is an end-to-end content production system. So it uses AI to accelerate the entire process with a deep and intense focus on content quality. I think we are the highest quality content producing platform on the market right now for a lot of reasons, which I can get into later. And I think there's definitely an angle here too that ties into recruiting and HR as well. Because I mean, arguably AI is the single thing that is reshaping the entire industry the most right now. The way I like to think about this too is that it's really an equalizer, right? And so you look at like what is the most common objection that people give to hiring international talent, right? And it's very often like language competency or accent or something like that, right? But that's not really what matters to the core competency of being able to do the job. And with AI tools like Orbit Flows, they can step in and bridge a little bit of that gap. So we actually have a couple of clients and customers that are international staff members for their team, managing high quality content production for that entire agency, which they're able to do with English as a second language, because guess what, AI has English as its first language, so you maybe don't have to there. And it, the content comes out sounding great, and it's fantastic for everyone because they've got the expertise. It can put the polish on the final writing, and everybody benefits.
Before we jump into really hardcore recruiting and retaining teams and team building, a lot of the audience that listen to this podcast are real estate companies and maybe even technology companies. So, can you give us an example of how these companies can apply your services to their day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing with a lot of real estate companies, we've worked with several of them in the past. We've worked with a lot of realtors, especially, is you need to be getting out there into your local market, right? You need to be getting your face everywhere. You need to be getting your brand message out there. And producing content is the way we do that in the modern world. But it's hard to hit that consistent production cadence, right? One thing we do very well is newsletters specifically. So rounding up local events and things happening in your area, all of those lovely little community pieces, putting that together into a fantastic curated newsletter just for your city, just for your town, with your face on it, and being able to send that out to your subscribers. Use that as a lead magnet, use that as something for at events or local things. Hey, sign up for my newsletter here. It's got all these details. We cover things happening in the local area every week. Great. Now you've got their email. Now you're engaging with them on a regular basis. It's the cheapest billboard ad you'll ever get. But that all sounds well and good in theory, but you actually have to write the content every week. You have to produce it at a regular cadence. You have to get that out there in the world, and it has to be stuff that people love. And that's where Orbit Flows can really come in there and assist with that. Is we are newsletter exports. It's got built-in templates for putting together these exact type of newsletters, doing the entire copywriting process, all the way from researching what's happening in your local area, writing the drafts, doing editorial and content quality reviews out on the other side, and then you just load it up into your email platform and send it out. So I think most real estate companies and real estate agents would like to have a newsletter. They would like to be following up with their prospects more frequently. They would like to have that lead magnet they can use to engage their local community, but they're operationally constrained. You got to get it off the ground. And with Orbit Flows, it really removes that barrier. So you can get your name out there, producing content regularly, but it only takes like 20 minutes to half an hour a week rather than hours or having to hire a writer. So that's how I would really see that tying in there. Everybody needs more content. Everybody needs more eyeballs on their brand. And Orbit Flows can make that happen at a very high quality bar.
Got it. What about social media? Can this newsletter content be applied close to copy and paste to social media?
Absolutely. So it's a general content production platform, right? It's fantastic at producing posts for X, for LinkedIn. YouTube scripts is another thing that works really well there. And the best way to really think about this too is what you're trying to do is you're not trying to just hit one channel, right? You're trying to set up an ecosystem of content, right? So let's say maybe you start producing a weekly newsletter that is doing a roundup of events happening in your area. Fantastic. You can do the research inside of Flows, just pick your favorite stories. It does the copywriting. Great. Now I've got a newsletter. But then you can take that and then directly repurpose that into, well, now you've got content generated for LinkedIn. Now you've got content generated for X. Now you've got, all of those other little pieces that can take one thing and leverage it into more. So as you very well know, the best strategies for content marketing are multi-channel. But what Orbit Flows let you do is it lets you scale that multi-channel marketing without having to scale it out for each channel, because those are handled individually by the tool.
Without doing it manually, because it's
Right, exactly. Because the core nuggets are all there already, whether that be from research coming in from a newsletter, whether it be from a podcast, whether it be from maybe your thing is you love to do video walkthroughs of your local city. But then you can take that and in just a few clicks, repurpose that into excellent content across all of your socials that is deeply aligned to your brand voice, to your talking points, the background information on what your company is and what it represents. That's one key differentiator here that I would say is it's very different than just throwing it into chat gpt and asking for a blog post. You're not going to get good results from that. They're not going to sound like you. They're not going to hit on your talking points. And we will build a bespoke AI content production system that's deeply trained to your company itself. And then once you have that set up, that means that you can just keep that running on autopilot, right? And so then you are following up with people, you're getting your brand and image out there, and you can basically put a whole marketing agency inside a box.
so now let's jump into other recruiting topics that we need to talk about. So I always ask my interviewees, what do you think is the more important trend you see regarding remote hiring, remote recruiting these days?
Couple of things there. I think there was, I'll identify two or three here. So first off, I think that remote is having a comeback. That's what I've seen. I think some companies got pushed towards remote too quickly during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then there was a little bit of a backlash that happened after that where people were like, oh no, we need to all return to office. But what companies are noticing is that a lot of people don't want to return to office, right? They like working remotely, and that's an asset. That's a key asset for recruiting there. So that's what I would say is that really the first trend there is that allowing remote work and hiring remotely can let you get better talent, right? It can let you get better people at a better price point because that's an asset that you can offer them. And I think that's a huge deal. We've used that to great success at Orbit Flows. It's a remote team. We wouldn't be able to have anywhere near the level of quality engineers and marketers and product people that we have if we required them all stay in one spot. In fact, in multiple instances, we've actually had people quit their other company that they were at before and move to ours explicitly because their other company was pushing a return to office. So it's a huge asset there. So that's one big trend that I would say. I think the next one is really that. So in recruiting overall, I would say that AI is definitely shifting things up there. But how this ties in is historically, a lot of people thought of outsourcing as a way to fill kind of like the bottom entry level rungs, right? And a lot of those needs and purposes are being filled by AI tools and products now, and they're going to continue to be in the future. And so, where you really want to think about this too is it's not just the ability to find something that is that entry level person, it's the ability to find someone who's really excellent at what they do, right? And so I think that that is more critically important in recruiting and HR now, is that the person who's a perfect fit for that job, the person who has exactly the right experience and knows just what to do, can now have even more leverage and impact with AI tools than before. So it's not that finding the right person is less important, it's that finding the right person is more important because they're going to be able to do more and have their force multiplied out there into the world. So that's really how I would think about that. So those are like two general trends that I would identify there.
Yeah, I was just a short reflection about what I think about that part of AI. The people that are close to technology and AI, like I hear you and a little bit of me, I vision myself of somewhere in between, maybe in the upper side. You, of course, in the upper side.
Right,
But
I'm deep in there.
people that are in the middle to lower side, like I don't know, like total paper consultants and stuff like that, or people that are in construction and they do
Right.
nothing regarding AI. I think that's they're gonna have a bad time sometime soon. I think
Mm,
that a lot of people in the middle to high to very high AI related jobs are going to eat their lunch.
yeah.
And it's not AI eating their lunch; it's the people that understand AI is going to eat their lunch. That's the way.
Yep.
I don't like it. I think that's just the way it's going to be.
Well, and it's interesting here too because that's the it's been a while since we had a really large labor market shift, I think, right? But it is changing there, right? It really is. And like I'm a software developer primarily. That's what I did historically. I'm more in like a managerial and product focused role now. But it has been stunning to see the amount of change in like my day-to-day work there that has happened due to AI in the past 2 years. What I do on a daily basis now is completely unrecognizable from where it was, say, 2 years ago. Right? Like I literally I almost no longer type the code. I'm managing AI agents and managing staff that are managing AI agents. And what that looks like though too is that it's people like it when things stay the same, right? That's easy. You're just continuing along with what you know and what you do. But get ready for change because it's coming. Maybe it's not there in your industry yet. In software and tech, I know it's already very strongly here. Partially because like software developers, ironically, like to build things that make software developers more irrelevant than ever. It's one of those strange things with us. But it's really going to come to basically every industry. And you can't fight a wave. You got to ride it. So.
All right, so I want to jump into a couple of other topics. What do you think is a big mistake that people do these days regarding remote hiring?
So I think one huge one too is that people hire remote thinking that it's, especially like if you've been a physical company for a long time, right? So like say you have a physical office and now you're adding an offshore team or something like that, right? It's not just that like they're a team member who is going to be there on Zoom or Meet or whatever. Like there's additional things that you want to put in place to make sure that they're successful and to make sure that that works. And so, like as a remote first company, we have a lot of those things baked into our culture already. So, for instance, I think some of the biggest mistakes that people make is not putting those project management and organizational disciplines in place first, right? So if you're hiring someone remotely, you have to have really good project management skills. You have to have those collaborative workspaces. We're ClickUp nuts at all of my companies. We love ClickUp. And so like everyone lives out of ClickUp. And that works because that's that shared workspace, really. Another common mistake that I think that people make is not emphasizing time tracking as much, for instance. So, even though a lot of the majority of our employees are salaried workers, nonetheless, for both like the salaried workers, people who are on hourly, people who are on contractors, everyone at our companies time tracks across the board, right? So every task that you're working on, every piece of work that you do corresponds to a task that exists inside of your project management system, and every one of them has a timer when it's going. And those are a lot of those things that kind of happen by default when you're in a physical work-based culture, right? Like you're there at the office, you're working, they came in at 9, they left at 5, they did their work. But you don't know as much of that when you're in a remote environment. So you have to make sure that those pieces are in place before you really hire someone in there. Because that's how you set it up for success. So that's what I would say the biggest mistake there is thinking that, and yes, sometimes you'll get someone who's just absolutely excellent, leads up the chain of command. They're disciplined and self organized, and can factor out all of the distractions that happen in a remote work environment. But you really want to be thinking as a company, okay, how do I set this person up for success? Because it is different. It's less structured than a physical in person working environment is. And so you need to layer in some of those digital and operational procedures to really get that working well. So that's, I would say, to like put that in like a nice little thought blurb, is the biggest mistake that people make is not getting their company ready for having remote talent, because it's different and you got to set them up for success properly.
Hey there! A quick break to remind you that 80/20 Recruit podcast is brought to you by 80/20 Recruit, helping you hire pre-vetted, top-performing remote talent from Latin America. Save hours of recruiting and find the perfect fit for your team. Visit 8020recruit.com to learn more. So, what about you as a CTO? How big is your company in terms of
Mhm.
amount of people? And what's your role as a CTO regarding recruiting and managing teams?
Yeah, great questions. So our headcounts are right around the 15 mark. Depends on like how you count contractors, et cetera, in there. My role in recruiting and hiring, I'm not usually out there on the front lines putting out the job postings and getting those interviews. I am usually more on like one tier back, doing a technical interview, right? Making sure that someone who says like, oh yeah, I know how to use this tool and this programming language, and I've worked in this framework. Do you actually? Because it's very easy these days to put together a resume that looks impressive, that sounds impressive, that has all of the right keywords and buzzwords. Partially because you could just ask an AI to write it for you. To put all of those those deeply technical keywords in there, make it sound like I'm a senior engineer. But you've got to be able to really filter it based upon what does the person actually have as real skills. So that's where I would come in there more, is really digging deep into their technical competencies. We like to do practical interviews as well, right? So you want to check for cultural fit. You want to check for, are they looking for the right type of working environment, the right hours, salary, all those things too. But then we really want to see them do an actual non-trivial piece of work as well. That's critical these days. And you to be able to evaluate that, you really do need the technical expertise. So that's one thing that I would say there. I would guess really as a recommendation. Like I said, I'm mainly involved in hiring technical staff members on the software development side of things. Um, but is make sure that you are not segmenting out your HR procedures from the people that they'll be working with, right? And from the real job that they're doing. Is it's not a distinct function hiring someone. So if you have one person that's managing recruiting and hiring, make sure that who is this person going to be direct reporting to. They need to be involved. They need to be vetting them. They need to be going over their skills. All of those pieces. I need to be making sure that those boxes are checked.
I have one saying with the people that I recruit and I work with. I say I don't work with someone unless or until I work with someone. What that means is that
Yes, yes, yes. I say the exact same thing, right? Like I won't work with you until I've worked with you.
I feel kind of bad when I say, okay, so for now, you go ahead and do this project for me, and I see how you do. And if you do well, then work for me. So I do that, but I pay them to do that. So many
Yes.
times I hire three people, two and a half, two to three people for one thing. I pay them to do that thing, and then I don't make them compete, but yeah, but I test them working. I pay them
Yeah.
for that. Because what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that that makes so much sense. So, right, let's look at the other advantages that remote hiring enables. And it turns out that this is one of them, right? Because it's a very different world if you're like, okay, you live in this different state, this different country. I need you to move here. You know, you got to move your family, you've got to buy a new house, you got to change all of that and start, right? That's a huge amount of commitment. And so it's hard to like test that out in advance. But when you're doing remote hiring, what you can do, and this is something that we commonly do, is we hire people first under what we call a probationary period, right? So even if the role that you're looking to step into is like a high paid salaried senior role, we might very well start you off at, okay, you know what, let's just start you off at 10 hours a week. We'll get you into our systems, we'll sign you up as a contractor, we'll see how you actually work with us. How proactive are you, how excellent are you at what it says that you work on? And then that de-risks the entire process here, because it's easy for them on the other side, because even if they have another job that they're already
Mm,
working,
they
they
could.
can they can still do this on the side, right? And there's this sort of a, it's like the,
It's
you
a
date
win-win
before you
situation.
marry, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's very odd that in hiring, it's very oftentimes this sort of like blind date, commitment for the next 5 years, you're in from there. But like you can go on a work date essentially with prospects, when you are hiring remotely, which is a huge advantage that that conveys. So de-risks the whole process dramatically, because a lot of people don't make it through that probationary period, right? And those are all mistakes and time and opportunity cost, on addition to the money lost on the wrong person. And so you can just de-risk the whole process there.
And it goes both ways because
Hmm.
they might not like how you do things
They might
and
hate
how
you.
you work.
It's just
I
better for
wanted to ask you
everybody.
a few questions about building teams. Okay,
Mhm.
so the first thing that I want to know about you is what do you think is good advice regarding building remote teams?
First off, like I said earlier, make sure you've got your like basic digital hygiene systems and processes dialed in there, because you are building that remote working environment, and like that's the physical space of your company, and that's how you can push culture forwards. Right? So that's one thing that I would say. The next thing that I would recommend here is, it really depends upon the role, but make sure you're getting regular face time with people, especially right out of the gate, right? So if you have someone coming in who is a remote team, maybe you're not going to have a daily meetup or a daily standing with them once they're all set up and activated and rolling. But initially, you really do want to be talking to them face to face every day. You want to be building that relationship. You want to be getting them up to speed. You want to be instilling all those pieces of company culture into them. And that's very hard to do if you're just completely asynchronous, completely just over Slack, right? So, like, set up a recurring meeting with them for 30 minutes a day for the next month, right? Maybe you're not going to do that infinitely, but you're going to find so much benefit from doing that. So, like, act like they're in the office with you for that first bit, and then they can go off and be more autonomous and more asynchronous after. So that's another a tip that I would say there as well. I think another thing here too is, like I said, really, like, remote allows you to hire fast, fire fast. And not everybody thrives in a remote work environment. There are people that are freeloaders, but you can figure out a lot of those signals early on. Give a warning, and if they're not working out, then there's another prospect waiting to walk through that door and fill that role. So it's okay to be picky about finding the right person to fill that seat, but make sure you set those expectations with them up front. It's great to treat the first start of that working engagement, like I said, as a trial period, as a probationary period, um, because in a remote work environment, it's always on the staff member to show that they're right for the job, and because the best people are so clearly right for the job, right? Like, when you find that correct person, you're like, oh, you are who I've been missing, right? So, like, we, for instance, just hired someone to really help out with the marketing of Orbit Flows itself. Senior level, 2 decades of experience, driven hundreds of millions in revenue at other companies. And it's like, oh, yeah, you are exactly who we needed, right? But, that was one of those examples, like I said, where they came on board specifically because their other company was pushing a return to office. And they're much happier working with us, which means employee retention is going to be better. It's just a better prospect for everyone. So I think another tip there that I would say is play into the benefits that it gives, right? So like I said, it's a great idea to set up like a one-on-one call with them every day. But at the same time, like don't set up an 8 hour long call with them. Don't be like you've got to be at your desk from this time to that time. Don't try to pretend that it's a physical working environment because then you'll probably end up with most of the harms, most of the costs that come with a physical working environment and that come with a remote environment and none of the benefits of each. Right. So make sure you're playing to the strengths of that. Is another big thing there. You know, like some people are morning people, some people are evening people, some people love to punch their 9 to 5 clock, right? Like we've got one guy who's online every day at 9 a.m. sharp. But then you've got other people who, you know, like maybe they didn't put as many hours during the week, but they put in like a 14-hour deep work binge over a Saturday. Like that's great. The work's getting done. It's getting done well. The people are happy. The project's moving forwards. So lean into the strengths that the format offers as well.
Great, I love it. I got a few more that I want to learn
Bring them.
from you, especially as a leader, as a CTO. So I got a simple slash complicated one. Okay, so you have a new employee and you're
Okay.
remote, contractor, whatever, and you send them a normally kind of simple task like follow up with
Mm-hmm.
these leads or do this and that, and then you follow up tomorrow and they haven't done it. So the question is, they haven't done it, or it's clearly not nearly what was supposed to be done. How do you give feedback to this person that is right coming and it's obvious that they had to do it, you were clear with the instruction, and they didn't do it? Is that a, we say, a red card? Look, because in soccer we give a red
Yeah.
when you, is that a red card? Is that a yellow card? Is that a, let's talk about it because maybe I wasn't clear enough? How do you manage that when it's clear at the beginning?
Right. So that's a very good question there. Because there's really two parts to this, right? Like it could be that they are not a good fit, that they don't complete tasks, that they're not disciplined, that they don't care, that they're actually working this job and four other jobs on the side, right? Like that is a thing that does happen. So you do need to be thinking that like it's possible that they are not even just an incompetent actor, but they could even be a bad actor, right? So you do need to have that in the back of your mind, but you don't want to jump to that conclusion, right? You don't want to immediately be like, they didn't complete this task. I assigned it in the project management system. I know they're in there. They didn't see it. Okay, they're fired, right? So what I would really recommend here is, especially for like the initial first thing there, is just talk to them and start asking questions, right? So it could there could even be simple IT problems that are preventing them, right? Like maybe they don't have the right permissions or passwords that they need to get in there. Maybe they don't have their notifications turned on properly. That's one big thing, right? Is like when you're inside the company and the ecosystem, you're used to getting those notifications. You know what Slack channels to check. You've got all of that built in. They don't have that yet. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they don't know the expectations there. And phrase all of that, use kind of like a Socratic method, right? So try to pull that out of them, right? And so it's like, okay, so you know, what tasks did you focus on yesterday? And they're not going to be like, well, I focused on no tasks, right? And they might be like, well, I was going through the onboarding checklist that you gave me, that HR gave me, right? And it's like, oh, okay, that's what they spent all of their time doing yesterday. I actually just had this happen very recently, right? A task was assigned. And I was like, okay, they didn't get that task done this day. Why didn't they get it done? But if you ask just a couple of questions rather than immediately souring the relationship initially, it's like, oh, it was because you had literally 8 hours worth of HR onboarding tasks to complete. You had to read the entire like company manifesto. You had to go through all of these processes. You had to get set up in payroll. You had to do all of those pieces. So it's like you were busy yesterday and you don't know where to find your notifications. So let's get that set up, right? And so I think everybody does deserve, it's not even really a second chance there, it's a first chance, right? But then you really shouldn't have to tell people things twice or three times or four times, right? It's one thing to make a mistake, it's a very different thing to have a pattern. Um, and once you start to notice that pattern, that's when I would very much just be like, just very clear and frank and like, look, you've been assigned these tasks, you know where to get them. I've shown you that. You see that you can go in there, you know that that's the expectation. You haven't been meeting that. Why? Is there any reason why that's not happening? And they might have a specific reason. Some people are excuse makers. Some people are just like, you know what, look, I messed that up. I'll do better. And you're like, great. And then you check in again. So it's, you know, you lead with, and that's the fun thing as a business owner is you have to like both think that like this person is excellent and also think that they might not be excellent. And you're trying to figure out where they sit on that side of the line. And that's kind of a long and rambly answer, but it's really more of an art than a science, right? This is management stuff. This is interpersonal relationships and like figuring out how people work. But if you've given them what they needed to be successful and you know that there's nothing blocking them from being successful, and especially, I used to do speech and debate back in the day. That's what I cut my teeth on back in high school. I always like to, you'll lead them down the cross-ex questions. And it's not like, why did you fail to do this task yesterday? It's like, okay, what did you work on yesterday? Cool. Do you know where tasks are assigned? Yes, I know where they're assigned. Okay, can you show me that? Yes. Do you see that there? What's that? That's a missing task. Okay, why didn't you do that? Right? And you just like lay it out so clearly, and it's you give people like no excuse, and then it's like, okay, and then we're gonna see how that goes tomorrow and the next day and the next day. We find really that you can figure out if someone's gonna be a good fit or not within a week, very oftentimes. Because it's just like, are they digging into the company culture? Are they networking with the people? Are they asking questions? All of that stuff. And if you're seeing yellow flags in week one, they're going to be red flags in week three.
If they couldn't do it, at least shout out, raise your hand, and say, "Hey, man, there's something. Yeah, I couldn't do it because," or before you get caught, right?
Everyone is responsible for their own success, right? You have to have ownership of your swim lane. And especially I would also say too, that is critical in a remote environment versus other environments, because, maybe they've worked in a physical environment where they're used to like the whole team like huddles up every day and it's like, you will do this, you will do that, you will do this. Okay. And they're used to being like purely a ticket taker and they're not used to having to look for those and lead up the chain of command there. But in a remote environment, if you're not proactive, you're not going to be productive at all, because there's nothing in your house, in your office, in your guest bedroom where your office happens to be that's forcing you to do the work. So if you're not finding the motivation and the skills to make sure that you get the work done, it's just not going to happen. So the bar is higher. I think it's harder to be successful in a remote environment, um, for an employee, for an average employee, than in an in-person environment. But I think for your high performers, they're going to be even higher performant in that remote environment.
Hey, Ethan, I got one last one. One last one.
Bring it.
So what do you think is the your personal slash company most important challenge regarding growing your team and finding talent these days?
Yeah. So I would say that right now, team is not the primary problem that we're focusing on. We have most of the seats that we need filled. But roll forward 3 to 6 months there, right, with the growth that we're expecting and the traction that we're seeing, it really becomes all about how to find people that have cross functional skills. What do I mean by that? Okay. So, what we need is not just someone who is a good software developer. What we need is not just someone who is even a good product marketer. What we really need is, especially with AI in the mix here, we need people that can, and this is just the problem of a startup, right? Is you need generalists. You need the ideal developer is the person who can't just write the code, but they can also look at the product and say, well, based upon the session recordings and the drop offs that I was seeing from users, we need to change this here. Here's how I'm going to scope that out. I'm going to go and execute on it, right? You want people that own vertically up the stack all the way to the market. So they see the customer struggling, they figure out how to fix it in the interface, they design that out themselves, they build the wireframes, then they build it in the code, and then they go and say, hey, marketing, here's how you should promote this, right? That's what you really want there. Because otherwise, what ends up happening is me very frequently in the sort of like visionary product focused role. I end up being like, well, look, like I could tell you how to do all of these things, or I could just go do it myself, right? And so that's what I think. If I'm looking forwards ahead to what I expect the problem to be, it's going to be scaling people that can really own the whole stack all the way to customer value, right? Because as a small company and as a company that's going to be scaling in a competitive market, that's really what matters. It's not enough to just be a good software developer anymore, right? It's not enough to just be a good marketer. You need to be a marketer that also deeply understands product and technology. And you need to be a software developer that also deeply understands the market, because those are the skills that are going to be resilient for the next decade to AI advancement as well. Is it's that broad context. It's that understanding of the market and the product and the team and the timelines and all of that stuff. It's not just down in the nitty gritty, it's on that big holistic picture. And finding people that have that is going to be hard, I think. because a lot of the educational curriculum, a lot of the way that people are even just taught to think about careers, it's like find your one little niche and just get really good at that one little niche. And that's worked in the past, but you have to be a generalist now. So that's what I expect the problem to be, but I think that hiring remotely is going to work really well for filling that because those sort of scrappy generalists are oftentimes the people that like non-conventional working environments as well.
And that is a little bit what I was trying to say when in Rumble trying to explain that people that understand AI in a high level or in a middle to high level, I think those people, those generalists, are going to be those ones that are going to be able to grab those verticals. But people that are used to just grabbing your your small niche, like you said, I think those will struggle. I think because big companies, I don't think they're gonna be as big anymore. They're gonna start being more of a violence like that. So I agree. I agree. Like this. So, and I feel for those people that can't be very much of generalists. I don't know what's gonna happen to a lot of them. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
because
think
there's
everyone
not gonna
can
be
be,
manual
right? It's
work
just
there.
you got to try. You have to try. So that's like the like learn everything. Like get good at everything. There's people in your company, there's internet resources, there's AI, there's everything to help you become that cross-functional person and just go get it. So,
That's been great, man. So we're getting to the end of this podcast. I think it, for me at least, it flew, went fast. I learned a
yeah, it
lot.
was fun.
Thank you for that time. So Ethan, this is your 1 minute call to action space that you can just call out to whoever's listening, and maybe you call out to your possible prospects of clients or just your message
Yeah,
to the world. What is it that you want to
awesome.
say? Mike is yours.
Yeah. So here's what I'd say there basically, right? You've been hearing a lot about AI. You've thrown some stuff into chatbots. You didn't get good stuff back, right? Everything has changed within the past 2 years. There, we can build you a content production system in just a half hour onboarding call that is going to accelerate your impact and really let you scale out all of those marketing channels that you need. You need to be posting on LinkedIn. You need to be posting on Twitter. You need video content. You need all of that stuff. We can help make that happen. And we can help make it happen fast and easy. And critically here too, you don't have to lower your quality standards, right? We're not talking about producing low quality stuff. We're talking about raising that quality bar, things that your audience are going to love. The offer that I'd like to give here is right now for a limited time, we are offering complete done for you onboardings as part of our standard free trial process. So all you got to do is go to the website, sign up for an account. There'll be a book a call link there, and then we'll figure out what makes your company really tick and build you out those AI assisted templates that'll let you hit that content production cadence consistently. And all of that's included in the trial, no risk. You got nothing to lose, and you need to be getting out there in front of your audience, and we can help make that happen.
Thank you, man. So that's a wrap for today's episode. Huge thanks to Ethan Reeves. You can learn more about his work just searching in LinkedIn for Ethan Reeves. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a positive review. If you want to be featured in this podcast, please apply to be a guest at 8020recruit.com/podcast. And of course, consider 8020recruit as your go-to partner for all things recruiting in our industry. So until next time, and keep building strong teams and hiring smarter. Thanks for listening to the 8020 Recruit podcast. If you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Want more tips? Follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website 8020recruit.com for exclusive resources. See you next time.